welcome to Badass Moms, brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. I'm Nicole Cruz, super busy mommy coach. Today, we are joined by Christopher Rausch. And before I introduce him, I just want to let you know that I am taking applications for one-on-one coaching. If you're interested, the best way to apply is just to message me on Facebook or Instagram at Super Busy Mommy Coach. You can go to my website and fill out the form, but I'm going to end up texting you anyway. So that's the most direct way to apply. I don't take any more than 3 at a time. So if you're interested, jump on this opportunity. So now I am really excited to bring you Christopher Rausch, who is known as the No Excuses Coach. He helps people overcome their self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit, which is one of the reasons Chris resonated with me so much and why I had to reach out. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nicole. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
It's an honor to have you. It really is. I love how down to earth you are. I love that it's no fluff. There's a place for the fluff and the inspiration and the mystical talk, and that really resonates with a lot of people. But personally, the way you do things resonates with me personally. And so I had to connect with you, and then it just kind of snowballed. We did a conversation on Clubhouse, and here you are. And I mean, I look forward to a lot more. But I want people to get a chance to know what impresses me about you so much. So give us the sense, your background directly brought you to this point, right? It's not like you went to college to become a life coach or something.
No.
So it was a direct line that prepared you for this work. And so can you give us that backstory?
Sure. How much time you got?
Go. Just go.
The backstory. Well, the essential, and thank you again for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And yes, I agree. The conversations that we've been having have been tremendous, and I look forward to definitely many more of those. So thank you. I appreciate and respect what you're doing in the world too. So having me on your show is definitely cool because I know some people kind of shy away from the truth, which is okay. It's good for them. Just keep hiding from the truth and be miserable and have a lot of regrets later on in life. Anyway, so no, seriously, my story, let's see, the encapsulated nutshell version of it is that I am a former 7th grade homeless dropout who lived in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 2 dogs. I was born to a mother with various psychiatric disorders and chemical dependencies and affinity for men. So I never knew who my biological father was when I was growing up. So I had mom and I had my sister who was a half sister, different dad. So you can kind of see the affiliation with the affection for men, different dad. And my upbringing really for the first 6 years, I would love to go back and see a video of what it is that I went through and see exactly how I was cared for and how I wasn't cared for. Because from what I gather between my mom and my sister, my life was pure chaos up until the time I became around 6 years old. My mom was admitted into a psychiatric facility when I was about 4 years old, and I had to go stay with her boyfriend's parents because we didn't have any other family. So that was an interesting experience. But in the culmination of my life and really trying to determine, where it is that I am today from where it is that I was. As a kid, I was isolated. I was alone. I was lonely. I always thought that I was supposed to be seen and not heard based on the fact of what my mom would tell me. I thought my first name was stupid. I thought my second name was shut up. And that all changed back when we moved from Los Angeles into Anaheim. And this is when I was 6 years old. This is when things started to change and shift because my mom found a steady boyfriend and they ultimately got married. And the six-year-old little kid finally just started thinking I'm going to have a family. I'm going to have a mom, a dad, a sister, and we're going to go live in a comfortable house, a 4-bedroom house. Before we lived in a 2-bedroom house in Southeast Los Angeles, which was not the best place, by the way. And so I went back and found out. But through that journey, it only started from there, the physical abuse, the mental abuse, from both seeing it from my mom and her boyfriend, or who became her husband, but also the physical abuse that was given to me from my mother because of the things that I didn't do and the things I didn't appeal to her in her expectations. So the abuse was physical, mental, was never sexual that I know of. And it was just craziness for that period of time. And not only was I bullied at home, but I was also bullied on the way to school and at school. So literally up until the age of 13, I was wondering why I existed. I had a few friends here and there, but I didn't fit in with anybody. Every time I tried to fit in, I was a square peg in a rectangle hole. It was just crazy. I remember one time when I was at school, I really wanted to fit in with these kids. and it was recess, and they were calling positions to play baseball or play softball. And I was standing there, and they said, "What position do you play?" And I said, "I play batter," because I did not know sports. I did not know anything. I just knew that I liked to hit the ball, and everybody started laughing and erupting. And I got picked on a team because the teacher made me get picked on the team. A ball came out to me. I didn't even know how to catch it. It was crazy. I never volunteered to play on sports again, really. And I kept my mouth shut even more than that. So up until that point, just trying to fit in. Then all of a sudden, drugs and alcohol and hanging out with the wrong people started to come into play. And this was before we became homeless. And so I remember when I was in the 7th grade, I went from being bullied to being the bully, because over the summertime, I shot up. I got really big. I was 13 years old. I started growing facial hair. And all of a sudden, when I went to 7th grade, I was one of the bigger kids in school. So suddenly people were afraid of me, and I started to control the situation. And it started turning ugly. I started getting into fights. I got expelled from school. I was skipping class. I was smoking pot. It's because I finally found my place where I fit in, right? F mom and F everybody else. I'm going to hang out with these cool kids. And so I tell that part of the story because, going back to the first part of being homeless at the age of 13, I'm thankful that it happened, because the trajectory that I was on at 13 years old, I'm thankful, because God only knows that, given the fact that I went through the homeless situation, I don't know where my life would be today if had that not happened. Now, going into the homeless situation, yes, for 4 years, I was on the streets. We were in and out of cars. I tried to commit suicide twice, but fortunately I sucked at it. Drugs, alcohol, stealing, everything, coming to a culmination, again, not in school, working 2 to 3 jobs, just trying to keep everything going, trying to keep food coming in. Sometimes we get motel rooms. So it's pretty crazy. And wasn't until I came back to the motel one day, I think I was about 17 years old. And again, being friends with everybody in the neighborhood, I had this black guy walk up to me and ask me if I wanted to buy a carton of cigarettes. And I said, "What do you got?" And he says, "Oh, I got a carton of Marlboro Reds." And I said, "Wow, carton of Marlboro Reds." I said, "That sucks." I said, "I smoke Cools." And he got really pissed off, because they thought I was making a generalization about his culture, about his heritage, about his ethnicity, because, most black people, or I shouldn't say most black people, some black people smoke menthols. And at that point, back in 1986, this particular individual took it to heart that I was making fun of him and put a 9mm gun to my forehead. At least I think it was a 9mm gun based on the way it was shaped, and threatened to blow my head off because he thought I was racist. And I told him, I said, "Listen, dude, I grew up as the only white kid in a black neighborhood from the age of 0 to 6 years old." I said, "All my friends are black, Hispanic, very minimal are white." I said, "Asian friends," I said, "I don't give a shit about what color your skin is. I said, I care what color the pack of cigarettes is. I don't smoke those. Thank you very much." And that's when the gun came out, put it against my forehead. And at that point, I'd already tried to commit suicide twice. And at that point, I looked at the guy and I said, "If you're going to pull the trigger," I said a different word. "If you're going to pull the trigger, pull the trigger." And I sat there and I fully expected to have my brains blown out and to die right there on the scene. Unfortunately, a guy came running out. A friend of mine is like, "No, him and his moms are cool. Him and his moms are cool." A dude named Will. I hope Will's doing good today. He saved my life. And so wound up becoming friends with that guy. But at that moment, Nicole, it was like literally everything I had been through my entire life. There were good times in there, little periodic episodes, when we had the house and stuff like that. We'd go to Disneyland once a year or something like that. But for the most part, my life up until that 17-year-old point was me hiding, escaping, fearing every possible situation in the book that would attempt me from living my life. And so at that point, I decided that either I'm going to get out of the situation by death, by jail, or by my own accord. And at that point, that's when I took responsibility for my life, and the journey changed from that point. So I will shut up at that point and let you ask me any questions.
That is absolutely heartbreaking. I think someone's trying to say hi.
Hello, what's up, little man?
Hello.
Your co-host.
Yep, this is my business partner, Eric. A lot of people listening already know him because he usually makes an appearance in every single episode.
Awesome. Hi, Eric. Good to see you again, buddy.
Pops in. Your story is heartbreaking. Me with a 6-year-old listening to what your life was like when you were 6 just absolutely breaks my heart. And meanwhile, you've taken it, you've accepted it, and use the opportunities from it to maximize your life and create a life that you love, but a kick-ass empire that serves people. It's incredible.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm wondering, in that moment, what exactly switched for you? Like, what was going on in your head? You thought you were going to die, and then you realized you weren't going to die. And that was a transformational moment. Do you remember specifically what that mindset shift was like?
I'm supposed to live. That was it. I was supposed to live, and I'm supposed to live my life. That was really the essential component of it, because up until that point, I'd done everything for my mom. You know, I had opportunity when we became homeless. I could have went and lived with my grandfather. I could have went and lived with some other people, went to school, had a quote unquote normal life, but I was there for my mom. And it was at that point I started realizing, well, actually, I really did realize, I'm like, she's not going to change. She's not going to change. She still has a psychiatric situation. She was actually working for a drug. This is funny. She was working for a drug dealer at this motel, which is now a freeway over it, because that place was so horrible. They demolished it and put a freeway over it. She was working for a drug dealer, but also informing the cops of what the drug dealer was doing. And she thought she was being this cool agent, and she thought she was cleaning up the streets. Meanwhile, I was working at Carl's Jr. at the age of 14. Told him I was 16. I didn't have a work permit, so I told him I was 16 years old. Worked 2 other telemarketing jobs. I suddenly realized that for everything I had done and put up with, the physical abuse and everything else, that was an indication that this was my last chance. Right? We get signposts, we get things that hit us up in the side of the face that tell us that, you know, here's an indication that you should change your route in life. And I had many of those. I almost got carjacked one time. I mean, I could tell you so many different stories. I gave you the very, very condensed version about that. But it really forced me to, I looked around one night, it was a couple of nights later, and I was at the top of the staircase, and I still see it. I still see all the lights, and I still, you know, cop cars, hookers, drug dealers, husband and wife yelling at each other. It should have been a TV show, but they didn't have reality TV back then. It was crazy. And I just really decided that I have to get myself out of the situation. Nobody else is going to. My mom even won the lottery while we were homeless. She won $5,000. We got clothes, and we ate, and I think we splurged for a while, and then we were broke again. So interestingly enough, when the universe hits you with a signpost, usually the universe will hit you with an opportunity to address that signpost. And a couple of days after I made that decision, like, okay, how do I get out of here? What do I do? Where do I go? I mean, can I go to my grandfather's? What? I went to one of my jobs, and it was funny enough, I was telemarketing out of somebody's apartment in their bedroom, which sounds creepy, but it wasn't. I was setting roofing appointments. The guy had an apartment in Huntington Beach. He had a 2-bedroom apartment. One of his bedrooms was an office. And me and my buddy who lived in the motel, who I became friends with, went there to work every day, and we set roofing appointments. And so we went to work one day, and this guy named Norman, he was a really cool dude. He goes, well, boys, he goes, I got some good news and I got some bad news. And I told him, I looked at him, I said, well, Norman, I've had enough bad news to last a lifetime. So what's up? And he says, well, I know you guys are living in that sleazy motel. He goes, I want to leave you my apartment. And we were like, okay, what? He goes, well, I should have told you the bad news first. No, I said, what's the bad news? He goes, I'm closing up shop. I'm going to move to Texas. But because I know where you guys live and I know how hard you guys are working, I want to leave the first and the last and the deposit, everything on this apartment, so you guys can move in here when I leave. And this was Huntington Beach, California. I lived in Anaheim, California, which was, you know, where Disneyland is, but the part of Anaheim I lived at was just totally nasty. So me and Robert looked at each other. We're like, oh my God. And I remember I didn't even think about my mom at that point. I just thought, oh my God, we could live here. There's a nice gym here, and there's creeks running through it, and there's gated community, and there's nice people, and everybody has jobs. And oh my God, you know, we could do this. And then it sunk in. I'm like, mom. And so we went about our day and everything, and I thought about it. And I can't remember exactly the timeline. I think it was a couple of days later where Robert was like, you know, if you don't do it, I could do this with Bob and blah, blah, blah. And they were going to, either way, he was going to do it. And so I was at a point where I could either hope, wish, and pray that I don't wind up dead or in jail, or I can take this opportunity. And so I told my mom, I said, listen, I mean, you got to imagine all the different things that I went through. And I went to my mom, and I thought, for the first time in my life, I'm going to tell her something, and she's going to say, you know what, Chris, I've screwed up your life enough. I have beat you. I have ridiculed you. I have demeaned you. I have pushed you. I have used you. Yes, you're 17 years old. Go be a man. Go live your life. No. Call me every name in the book, made up some names, tried to have me arrested for taking my own car. I wasn't stealing my own car. Yeah, it was ugly. But the thing of it is, Nicole, as mad as she was, I still went back there every single night. I helped her take care of her cats. I gave her as much money as I possibly could to help her out. she suddenly got stronger. And of course, I got around different people and started changing my trajectory. And the path, the journey between us still continued up until the point where she expired.
Wow. That's powerful, because the people around us have such a big influence. When you start a different path, I find that most people either get held back because of the expectations of their family. They feel like they need to serve their family, meet those expectations, or they almost like swing the pendulum in the other direction. Like, well, that's not my problem. I have to do me. And I really respect that you stood true to yourself while also valuing the relationships that you've had your entire life. And I'm sure there are going to be some people listening who disagree with that, but I just really respect that. I think it's really amazing. You're welcome. And yeah, so that's how you got to this point of like realizing some of the things you did. How did you actually get into coaching and teaching other people?
That's a great question, Nicole. Ultimately, what I did was through the journey of healing myself and learning to grow and learning to put myself in uncomfortable situations. My first inclination, we could talk about that part of the journey. My first inclination was, how do I make sense of all this? How can I, because I was angry, I was resentful, I was still carrying a lot of baggage. I was doing the things that I needed to be doing, but inside my mind, I was not happy and I wasn't fulfilled because I was thinking like, what if this, what if this? I was constantly pontificating about the past and thinking about, what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda, all these different things. And then ultimately I realized, and I remember then I was on the back seat of the station wagon. It was a 1969 Country Squire station wagon. I'll never forget it. Wood paneling on the side. And I remember laying on the back of the seat. There was a vinyl seat, and I had my head on a jacket on top of the armrest. And I thought, the only thing I ever want is my own home that nobody can take away from me. And I want to help other people get out of this situation that I'm in. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was God, source, universe that was speaking to me, but through that journey, once I started seeing and reaping the rewards of doing the hard work and getting back into school and getting around the right people and dedicating myself to learning and growing and becoming a different person, I suddenly became excited about, hey, if I can do it, I can go teach other people how to do it. And so my natural instinct was just to help everybody. It was like, hey, listen, and I never told anybody my situation. I was just like, hey, people come to me and say, oh, I've got this situation. I'm like, oh, have you thought about looking at it this way and looking at it that way? Because through those 4 years and through my whole life with my mom, one of the key things that I learned was to be resourceful. She didn't care about excuses. She's like, I want it done. What did she say? I want it when I want it. She goes, I want it when I want it, how I want it, when I don't know. She used to have this, the whole thing. Like she wants what she wants when she wants it, something like that. It occurred to me to be able to share that story with other people and uplift them, and seeing their faces when they learned that they could be in control of their life and change their trajectory. I just became immediately addicted. And, through that process, my first avenue into coaching, if you will, was simply going back and mentoring at-risk kids, kids that are in and out of juvenile hall, they're in foster care, they're out of foster care, all these misfits of society, these poor kids that don't have any place to go. They go to gangs because that's the only place they feel included. My goal was like, okay, listen, I was on the streets. How can I take my journey and help these other people, potentially, circumvent some of the stuff that I had to go through? So it just immediately became about that. And people used to just say, oh my God, dude, you should be a psychiatrist. So I started studying psychology and sociology, was going to become a licensed family clinical social worker or something like that, because all I wanted to do was help people. And then somebody said, oh, you should be a coach. And I'm like, what the heck's a coach? I don't play sports. And so this whole life coach thing came out, and it was a result, I think, of Scott Baio. I don't know if he was Scott Baio from Happy Days. He did a reality show called Scott Baio Has a Life Coach. And somebody said, that's what you do, Chris. That's what you do. And I never charged anybody for it. I just did it. Out of the goodness of my heart. I did this thing called Pay It Forward coaching, where I would coach somebody and I would say, you go do 3 nice things for somebody, for complete strangers, and come back and tell me about it, because I saw the movie Pay It Forward with Haley Joel Osment. And I was like, okay, listen, if I do something nice and you guys go do something nice, and then those people go do something nice, we can actually have a ripple effect in the world and make the world a better place for who it is than what we are and what we do. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it. And then professionally just, continued on the journey and just realized doing what I was doing in corporate was okay. And it was successful, but it wasn't my heart's desire to, as it is with coaching and speaking.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. And I mean, you can tell, like you said, resourceful is the perfect word. You can tell that your struggles led you to become someone who's good at finding creative solutions to problems. And it doesn't matter the problem. You look for the solution, you believe there's the solution, and you don't stop until you find the solution, which is an admirable quality. And I'm wondering, just in your opinion, how much of that do you think is like an innate talent, and how much of that do you think you absolutely would not have had if you didn't have these desperate circumstances that forced you into it?
Great question. I definitely think it was the situations. I think the situations, I mean, we call them negative situations. We call them, anything but positive. But when I look back on my life, I sit there and I'm appreciative of every situation that I was placed in, because it was an opportunity for me to pivot and grow. So when we sit there and think, I don't want to go through painful situations. Like if I ask my coaching clients, or I ask a potential coaching client, tell me about a time where you grew the most in your life, and tell me about that experience. 99% of the people will tell me about a negative experience where they learned something. So when I ask people like, oh, we're trying to solve for what's missing in their life, right? They're amazing in 4 areas of their life, but there's one area of their life that they're not succeeding in, they're not fulfilled in. So what I do is I take those excuses, or I take their micro excuses, and we figure out a way to work around that, to be able to change our perspective about what it is that's ailing us, and to be able to have a different perspective on what it is that we're going for.
Mm-hmm.
Was that
yeah,
the question?
I love that.
I got wound up in my own answer for a second. So
no, that's awesome. That's awesome. It's all good. You're like spewing gold over here. So let's talk a bit about, like the obstacles that people face. Like what are the most common obstacles you see that, I mean, because everyone in their own head thinks they're doing everything they can. And I find myself in this situation. I'm like, I know logically there's a different way to approach this. I know logically that there are people who could be in this situation and figure out exactly how to get where I want to go, but it's escaping me. I don't see it. I don't know. I don't like, Google's not helping. Google life coaching, that'll be their next app, I'm sure. But
geez, no. No more coaches, no more coaches, no more coaches.
We'll get into the coaching industry a little bit later for sure.
Right.
But like what are these obstacles that get people who have the best intentions, who really are trying their best? They're not like, I'd rather drink wine. Like, that's another category, right? We can deal with that. But the people who are actually stuck, what do you see as those obstacles? And what are some of the creative ways you found to help people learn how to get around that stuck feeling?
That's true. That's a great question. Obstacles. Most of the obstacles that people face are their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own language that they use. You know that. So when I think about obstacles, a lot of the obstacles of the people that I've talked to recently over the last year with COVID, at the time of this airing, we've been going through COVID for the last 12, 18 months. So I've given a lot of complimentary coaching calls. And through that process of giving these coaching calls out, I started realizing a pattern. And so I took it upon myself one day to ask this particular individual. It just struck me. And I just said, okay, I'm going to ask you a question and I want you to answer it yes or no. I don't want you to think about it. And she was like, okay. And I was like, should I do this? Should I not do it? I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, do you love yourself? Yes or no? Yeah, I think I do. Okay. You think you do. Talk to me more about that. Why would you not think that you totally love yourself? Get in the conversation. So I started asking more and more people about this. And I'm like, okay, some people say, I don't love myself. I'm like, okay, so you're going out here and doing all these things. You're doing these things. You're taking action on these things, but you're not getting any results. You're not getting any different fulfillment out of this, right? Yes. Okay. So what is it that we have to change on the inside to be able to adapt to appreciate what is coming, what is being received, right? If you don't love yourself and you don't accept and appreciate and believe that you deserve abundance in your life, and you're going out there and you're doing all these actions, but nothing is coming in, it's because you're literally, you're climbing the ladder, but you're climbing the ladder against the wrong building. Right. So the first part of it is, and one of the things that I love the most about the way I coach is I don't treat the symptoms. I go straight for the root cause. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. We've talked about this before in the coaching industry, is they go for the symptoms. Oh, let me take care of that symptom. Let me take care of that symptom. Let's get to the root flipping cause, right? What is it that's standing in your way? What belief system do you have about your past that we need to change the perspective on, so that you can see that it happened for you and not to you? And combined with that, Nicole, is to be able to paint a picture of where people are going. So many people So many people, I'm not even kidding, do a better job of planning a tailgate party, planning a wedding, planning a vacation. They don't plan their life. They hope, wish, and pray that, quote unquote, someday things will change and they'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. Oh, when the kids are gone. Oh, maybe when the kids are gone, then I'll divorce my husband. Then I'll be able to do life I have. I'll have the life I want. They play that someday game. But ultimately, it starts within ourselves. Ultimately, it starts with, do I love myself? Yes or no? If I don't, then perhaps I need therapy. Perhaps I need a coach. Perhaps I need to discover why the reasons that I don't love myself and see if I can change that perspective. And the thing that's missing for most people, Nicole, is that ability to have love and empathy and forgiveness for the things that have happened from their past, the wrong things that have happened from their past. I would not be where I'm at today if I did not learn empathy and forgiveness, because back in the day, my mom was a very abrupt person. You think I'm candid and unfiltered and raw and unscripted. My mom set the table for that conversation, man. She didn't like you. You knew it. She didn't care who you were. And so I grew up with that. I grew up with a very sarcastic, very open, don't give a F kind of attitude. So through that process of learning forgiveness and empathy, I was able to release a lot of the anger and the resentment and the fear that I had experienced all my life up until 17 years old. At that point, I'm like, I've tried to kill myself. I've had a gun put to my head. Lord knows I've done drugs and alcohol where I might have OD'd or passed out. I'm still here. So now the choice is mine. Do I continue believing all the inputs that have been placed into my brain over the last 17 years? Or do I decide to pick up, what is it called? It's called a book. I have one over here. You pick up a book and you start reading the words in it. And you string the words together and you string the thoughts together and you string the ideas together and you take the actions and you implement what it is that other successful people have done. You talk to yourself like successful people talk to themselves. You get up and you do the things that successful people do. You will be successful. Success leaves clues. So the obstacle is all within here. And here's the thing. Here's to put a bow on it. Back to when I was coming out of being homeless and trying to figure out my way, I got around a great guy named Bill White. He became my mentor, and he looked at me straight in the face one day and he said, Christopher Rausch, he goes, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. You're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. So Henry Ford has a great quote out that I love because it's simple. If you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right. So it all changes with that dialogue within our bodies, within our minds and our souls. And it changes with the people we interact with, right? Misery loves company. So if the 5 people we hang around the most are, life sucks, politics, it's never going to be fair. When are they going to send me another check? Guess what? Chances are you're going to be like them. But if you're hanging around people like, hey, what can we do to make the world a better place? Hey, you go follow your dreams, man. It doesn't matter if you're making millions of dollars. As long as you go to sleep at night and you feel fulfilled in life, that's what living is about. Not existing, not hoping, praying about materialistic shit so you can feed your ego. This is about making an impact. This is about having a legacy that at the end of the day and the end of the journey that we're on, we can look back on our life and be so stoked about all the things and all the chances and the things that we experienced rather than having regrets. And I learned that from reading the book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. You guys can go out there. There's a website, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. The number one regret, Nicole, I don't know. Do you know this?
No.
Number one regret of the dying. It's a great book. It's actually up on my shelf right there. The number one regret of the dying is that they did not live the life that they wanted to live. They lived the life that they thought they were supposed to live. I'm gonna say that again. They didn't live the life they wanted to live. They lived the life they were supposed to live. And based on the input of their parents, the society, oh, you should be an engineer, you should be a doctor, you should be this. No, I want to be in film school. No, I want to go join the foreign Navy. I want to go be a ballet dancer. I want to be an actress. I want to be a comedian. I want to be a programmer, whatever. No, you should be this. I'm gay. No, you should be straight. That isn't allowed in our religion. That's the biggest regret that people have. And I've talked to people that without even reading the book, I talked to people when my mom was in and out of convalescent hospitals. I would talk to older people and be candid, right? I'm a candid person. So if you had your life to do over again, what would you do differently? Unanimously, in a different way, they would say it is they would live their life on their terms. All of these people, they're sitting there playing. I remember one lady, it broke my heart. She was playing a giant, she was putting together a giant puzzle. It wasn't even a small puzzle. She was an older lady, I don't know, in her 80s or something like that. And I talked with her and I was like, wow, you were an exuberant person in life and you had your youth and and to listen to her talk, it sounded like, like her life was like, I don't know. It was just sad. That's all I could say. It was just sad. It was like, wow. And seeing in her eyes, and I had this dream of doing this and just seeing that and knowing that's all you get to do for the rest of your life is think about the things that you could have done For me, no, it's about execution and living our life right now.
I love it 100%, and, it's also interesting because, I feel like you can be left out on either side, right? Because there's the people who are like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have done that. And it almost makes me wonder, well, first, like you said, why didn't you? But also, if they had done those things, would they have actually been fulfilled? Or is it a matter of the grass being greener on the other side? So it's like, either way, I feel like what you said about not having regrets about your past, I that resonates with me completely. Like my life is mine. That's my story. It's not all rosy, but it's mine. And it's like, like your family, like your home, they're not always, some picture perfect thing, but they're yours and you have a deep connection to them. And there's literally only one thing that I would change. And that's the death of my brother, because I want my brother to be okay. Anything else, it's like, no, like I feel like I've made the most of it, and I love that idea. And yeah, I want to wrap up the first episode on that note, because I think it's a beautiful place to leave off, but we're going to be back for another episode where we're going to dive deeper into these obstacles, and we'll also talk a bit about the coaching industry, because we have some ideas about that may not be super popular among coaches, but they'll help the people listening who are thinking of hiring a coach. So anyway, let everyone know where they can get in touch with you, how they can start working with you, how they can get some of your no self-help fluffy BS, no self-created crap. Let's get rid of all of that. How do they start?
Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate you. The simple place to go is www.christopherrausch.com. RAUSCH for those of you guys listening, christopherrausch.com. You can go there and check out all sorts of stuff. There's a place to book a complimentary coaching session just for being on the show and being friends with Nicole. I will do that for you. So go hit up the calendar, and would love to talk with you.
Thank you for that. And thank you so much for being on the show. And I look forward to the next episode where we dig deeper into this. And
awesome.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Badass Moms, brought to you by the Holistic Therapies Directory. If you are a holistic practitioner or you're looking for a holistic practitioner, make sure you go to holistictherapiesdirectory.com to share your gifts with the world or find the perfect practitioner for you in your area. And don't forget to pick my brain at superbusymommycoach.com. And if you're interested, message me at superbusymommycoach on Facebook or Instagram to secure one of those last coaching spots. Thank you, everybody, and we will see you next time.